You wake up, reach for your phone, and before your feet even touch the floor, you've already made the first small deal of your day. A quick scroll for comfort, a laugh at someone else's highlight reel, a promise to yourself, I'll rest later. You hit like, you swipe, you keep moving. Nobody sees that tiny signature you just made, and yet somehow your whole day follows it. This is the hidden contract. It's not written in ink. It's not in a courtroom. It's a rhythm of small choices, invisible clauses you accept without a read-through. And over time, those tiny signatures stack up into a binding agreement that shapes who you are, where your heart goes, and what your future looks like, all without you realizing you ever agreed. Think of a contract: terms, exchange, consequences. The hidden contract of daily life has the same structure. There is an offer, comfort, approval, safety, a response, a choice you make, and then a result that often looks like normal life but has spiritual weight. The Bible calls many of the things we trade for, fear, comfort, control, by different names. But here's what I want you to hear. Not every trade is neutral. Some trades cost you your destiny. Let's unpack how this works, and how to see it before it signs you into chains. First clause, the contract of comfort. Comfort is the modern tempter. It whispers, choose rest over risk, pleasure over pain, convenience over courage. It's not always sinful. Food comforts, sleep restores, but comfort becomes a contract when you consistently choose immediate ease over long-term growth. When you say not now to every costly obedience, you're taking out a clause that reads, I prefer a smoother life to the refining of fire. Picture someone who knows they must apologize to heal a relationship, but every time they feel the discomfort, they decide to wait until the mood is right. Days become months. The wound festers. The contract of comfort has been accepted. Comfort now, broken relationships later. The irony is brutal. The thing meant to soothe keeps the deeper pain alive. Second clause, the contract of approval. We are social animals wired to belong. So when the world offers applause in exchange for a small compromise, a softened word here, a hidden truth there, many of us nod. We sign with a like, a comment, a curated post. We barter a little honesty for acceptance. You trade authenticity for applause, and before long you speak in drafts you never intended to send. This contract is subtle because it often looks like success, followers, friends, a peaceful platform. But underneath, your voice is rented out to an algorithm and the approval of strangers. The cost, your boundary lines, your convictions. The face you show the world becomes a mask you can't easily remove. Third clause, the contract of control. Control whispers promises that feel righteous. If I manage every risk, if I plan every step, I can avoid pain. So you take out insurance on faith. You hedge prayers with plans, and you sign away a posture of trust for the illusion of certainty. Control turns your life into a spreadsheet, but God's kingdom is less an Excel sheet and more a wild field, unpredictable, messy, and ultimately flourishing for those who trust His reins. This is the contract that surfaces when you refuse to surrender the future. You hold tight to your plans, your what-ifs, and you miss the surprise of providence. You lose the rhythm of waiting well and the art of being shaped by circumstances that refine faith. Fourth clause, the contract of bitterness. We think bitterness is a feeling we'll manage. I'll remember but not let it define me, we say. Yet every replay of a wrong, every vow to never forget, is a small signature on an agreement that crowns the injurer and binds you to the wound. Bitterness calls itself justice, and you sign, believing you'll remain righteous and whole. But bitterness is a slow poison. It changes prayers into accusations, worship into performance, and love into armor. Fifth clause, the contract of silence. Maybe the most dangerous. You witness injustice, you see truth bent, someone needs a voice, but speaking risks loss of status, relationships, income. So you agree to silence. The contract reads, I will stay quiet to keep peace. But silence is a vote. Each unspoken word is a signature on an agreement that lets evil go unchallenged and allows fear to grow roots. Do you see the pattern? Each clause seems small. Each trade feels reasonable in the moment. Comfort is appealing, approval is addictive, control is reassuring, bitterness feels protective, silence looks safe. But the cumulative effect is enormous. The hidden contract drifts into identity. Here's the unsettling truth. The devil, the tempter the Bible warns about, does not always come as a roaring demon. Often he comes as a friendly agent, offering bargains that make sense. Keep your mouth shut, keep your likes, keep your schedule. The enemy is a lawyer, and he drafts agreements in small choices. If you never read the fine print, you pay later. So how do you spot the contract? How do you unsign what you didn't mean to sign? First, awareness. If you live by autopilot, the contract writes itself. Start tracking the tiny choices that repeat. What do you do when the hard thing comes? Whose voice do you let steer your day? God's or the world's? What do you reach for when you need consolation? Patterns name the clauses. Second, the test of time. A choice that blesses for a week but robs you of peace for a year is not neutral. Examine the long-term currency. If your trade eventually steals your joy, your witness, your generosity, it's likely a clause you should renegotiate. Third, ask the question, who am I becoming? If you keep the same practices, and the answer is smaller, angrier, fearful, more self-protective, you're probably living under a hidden agreement. Fourth, bring God into the contract review. Prayer is not begging God to rubber stamp your clauses. It's a moment where honesty meets grace. Tell God the small signatures. Ask Him to show you the costs. The best contracts are cancelled publicly. Repentance is legal language in the spiritual realm. It voids old agreements. Now listen, you will not undo years of small agreements instantly. Unsigning is a process. It's not dramatic in a movie way. It's a daily, sometimes boring discipline, but it yields freedom. Here are practical steps. Name the clause. Say it out loud. I trade compassion for comfort. Naming disarms the contract. Replace the behavior with a covenantal action. If you traded silence for safety, start speaking truth in small ways. One honest conversation this week, one boundary reset. If you traded growth for comfort, pick a discipline that costs time or pride. Fasting, serving, a hard conversation. Recruit witnesses. Contracts are hard to break alone. Confess to a friend, mentor, pastor. Accountability dissolves secrecy. Practice reverse signing. For every old signature, put a new mark. Generosity where you hoarded, honesty where you hid, courage where you avoided. Ritualize it. A daily prayer, a journal entry, a symbolic action. They matter. Let me tell you a story. Not distant, not biblical only, but the kind of small life story that exposes how the contract works. There was a woman named Mariam. She was faithful. Church every Sunday, prayers at night, posts of gratitude online. Prisoner of a steady job, she poured her life into helping others discreetly. Then she was hurt, betrayed by a partner, slandered at work. The natural wound birthed a quiet vow. She would never be vulnerable like that again. She pulled in. Her posts became measured, her smiles practiced. On paper she looked fine. Inside she had signed into the contract of protection. Safety by isolation. Years later her heart had shrunk. She could not love the way she used to. Her prayers had become rehearsed petitions for safety instead of wild intercession. One night after a church service she sat with an older pastor and told him the small truth. I closed my heart. He asked, "What would it cost you to open it again?" She named the cost and slowly, painfully, started to practice small risks. One apology, one vulnerable message, one dinner with a person she feared. The hidden contract was being replaced by a covenant. I will risk love again. It wasn't dramatic, it was daily, and it restored a heart. Why does all this matter? Because the God who made covenants knows contracts. He knows binding agreements. But He is also the God of new covenants. He does not leave you bound by the signatures you made under pressure, fear, or deception. That's the scandalous grace of the gospel. There is a rescission clause written in the blood of Christ. You can come to Him and declare before heaven, I renounce the agreements I made in fear. I choose a new way. This is not just spiritual legalism, it's the most practical thing you can do. You are rewriting your future. Now don't make the mistake of thinking every small agreement is evil. Some are good. Work, rhythm, rest, community. These are contracts we sign consciously and well. The problem is the unconscious ones, the clauses we accept without a hearing. Those are the ones that shape our destiny. So let's walk through the most common hidden clauses people sign and how to reverse them. The clause of avoiding pain in the name of peace. Reverse it by choosing honest conflict when necessary. Speak up with grace. Risk a relationship to save it. The clause of cheap faith, where prayer becomes a vending machine you press for outcomes. Reverse it by praying for alignment, not results. Ask God, make me willing for what you want more than my desired answer. The clause of comparison, where you exchange gratitude for the green of someone else's lawn. Reverse it by fasting from feeds, practicing gratitude lists, celebrating another's success aloud. The clause of performative religion, where worship is image maintenance. Reverse it by private honesty. Pray a naked, ugly prayer, God, I don't love you like I should. Courage often begins with confession. There is also a powerful positive clause you can sign, the covenant of surrender. This is a daily signature you place willingly. I will choose God's ways over my instinct for safety. I will prefer truth to praise. I will risk growth over comfort. This covenant looks small, but it has the force of 1,000 reversals. It dissolves hidden contracts as you live it. Now let's talk about timing. Many people wait for the big moment, the dramatic revival, the slam of revelation where all hidden contracts fall away. Most of life is not cinematic. The undoing happens in small rituals, getting up to pray when you don't feel like it, saying sorry, walking away from a toxic scroll, choosing the hard thing. These micro-revocations accumulate into the freedom you long for. And one final controversial truth. Sometimes God allows you to keep a consequence of a past contract, not to punish, but to educate. If you signed away generosity for safety, God might let the lack teach you empathy. The presence of consequence doesn't nullify grace, it refines you. The key is not to live under that consequence forever. Use it to learn, then move to renegotiate. So, what does freedom look like after you unsign? It's surprising. It looks ordinary. Less anxiety, kinder conversations, risk taken for the sake of love, prayer that isn't transactional, joy that returns like a tide. You'll notice your eyes change. You see more because you long for less. You'll find courage in places you used to avoid. The hidden contract loses power when you start signing the covenant of surrender each morning. Before we finish, let me give you a simple daily ritual. 3 things to do every morning that begin to void the small agreements that bind you. 1. Read one line of scripture slowly and ask, where in my life is this not true? Name one small place of agreement that contradicts it. 2. Pray one raw sentence, not polished language, just an honest, God, I renounce this trade. Speak it aloud if you can. Name the clause, I renounce the contract of silence, or I renounce the contract of comfort. 3. Do one small courageous act before noon, a short apology, a phone call, a fasted hour, an honest comment. Small deeds change habits. Do this daily for 30 days, and watch how the hidden contract loses its grip. This is not magic law, it is spiritual discipline, the daily freedom work of ordinary saints. You will fall, you will fail. But each return is part of unwinding what you once signed in ignorance. Now, if you're watching this and you want to be part of something practical, write below the one clause you think you've signed. Say it in a word: silence, comfort, approval. Make it public. There is power in naming it in front of other witnesses. And if you want to go deeper, let this be your first covenant with God today, not a list of requests, but a declaration.
Lord, I renounce the hidden agreements I made out of fear, selfishness, or numbness. I sign a new covenant to walk in freedom, to risk love, to speak truth, to trust you with what I cannot control.
Pray it, mean it, return to it. The hidden contract signs people into small lives. The covenant rewrites destinies. Which one will you live under? You can still change your signature. You can still sign another name. You can still say, not this, not today. And if you do, heaven leans in. The small choices become a rebellion that changes your story.